Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss about the pollination in plants. In the previous class, we have learnt about the different parts of a flower. We have came to know that flower is a reproductive organ of a plant. It produces fruits which contain seeds. The seeds then produce new plants when sown in the soil. Formation of fruits and seeds in plants take place after reproduction is completed. For this, there are two important steps to be completed. The first step is called pollination. When male and female reproductive cells come together. And the second step is called fertilization, when both the reproductive cells fuse together. In the previous class, we have learnt that anther lobes present in the stamens produce pollen grains which contain male gametes. Ovary present in the pistil contains ovules which contains the female gametes. For seed formation, the pollen grains produced in the anther must be transferred to the stigma of the pistil. The process of transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma is called pollination. Pollination in plants can take place within the same flower, within different flowers of the same plant, or different flowers of different plants. Accordingly, pollination can be of two types: self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination is the process during which the pollen grains are transferred from an anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower present on the same plant. This process does not require any external pollinating agent. Examples of plants which reproduce by self-pollination are pea, tomato, beans, etc. The process of transfer of pollen grains from a flower to the stigma of the flower of another plant is called cross-pollination. The process cannot take place on its own and needs an external agent to help the transfer. Examples of plants which reproduce by cross-pollination are sweet pea, papaya, China rose, etc. Since plants cannot move from one place to another, they need the help of other organisms or natural elements to transfer their pollen grains. Wind, water, insects, birds, and other animals, including us humans, help in transferring of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower. They are called the agents of pollination. Flowers of grasses such as rice, maize, wheat, corn, and so on are pollinated by wind. Pollen released by these flowers can be blown by wind to flowers of another plant, resulting in pollination. The pollen grains of these plants are light, dry, small, and are loosely attached to the filaments so that they can fly easily. The pollen grains are produced in a large quantity since a large number of them may not reach the stigma of a flower. The style projects out and has a large feathery stigma so that the pollen grains flying in the wind can be easily received. Pollination can also take place with the help of water. It occurs in aquatic plants, especially those submerged in water. The common examples are Vallisneria and Hydrilla. These flowers are small and produce pollen grains in large numbers which float on the water surface. Pollination occurs when the male flower moving with the water current comes in contact with the female flower and the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma. Many insects such as bee, butterfly and moth feed on nectar produced by certain flowers. The insects are attracted by the beautiful color and odor of the flowers. When these insects visit the flowers, the pollen grains from the anthers stick to their body. Later, when these insects visit other flowers, the pollen grains get transferred on the stigma of that flower. Some examples of insect pollinated flowers are jasmine, marigold, sunflower, and banana. These flowers are large in shape, generally secrete nectar, have brightly colored petals, and emit a sweet scent as an attractant. Birds, squirrels, bats, elephant, we, the human beings, also act as agents of pollination. When these animals come in contact with a flower, the pollen grains get stuck to their body. The pollen grains get dropped off on another flower when the animal visits that flower. In such cases, the flowers are usually large, brightly colored, and grow on tall trees. For example, birds bring about pollination in silk cotton tree. Also produce abundant nectar and pollens for their attraction. All up to this for today. Study